What's the grossest thing you've ever seen someone bring to a potluck? Story 1. My cousin's wife wanted to make pimento cheese sandwiches for a Super Bowl party. Problem is, she had no idea what went into pimento cheese and refused to go to the store because it couldn't be that hard. So she mixed a bag of shredded cheese, an ungodly amount of mayonnaise, and for the little red bits, maraschino cherry halves, then dumped approximately a half cup of garlic salt in for good measure. I thought they were a dessert because they were pink and couldn't figure out what a pink sandwich would be. It was truly one of the worst things I've ever put in my mouth. Jennifer Connell was some kind of lasagna made by someone who had no clue what lasagna is. There were layers of pasta, but the rest was things like chicken, grated cheddar cheese, canned jalapenos, mushroom soup, frozen mixed vegetables, spicy mayo, etc. Story 3. Casserole with a side of roaches. Not even kidding. They crawled out of the bag she brought her dish in. I stopped participating in potlucks after that. Story 4. We had a potluck today and someone brought some Doritos. People started eating them and complaining that they tasted like dirt. We looked at the bag and it had a promo for Mockingjay Part 1. The chips expired in 2014. This was a mixed department potluck, and we haven't found the person that brought the 9-year-old chips. Story 5. An office potluck. As everyone is eating, one of the girls says, "I'm sorry if you find ant cat hair in the green bean casserole. My cat kept getting up on the counter to nibble at the edges." Cue everyone looking at each other like, what the fuck? Story 6. We had a lady who made her special PB fudge, but she wouldn't put it out with all the food. She would walk around with her Tupperware and offer the people she liked a piece. Not more than one piece you were allowed to take. If she didn't like you, you didn't get one. This went on for years. The last year she worked there, we all decided to say no thank you when she approached us. Oh, and 2 of us brought fudge for everyone at the table spread. She was furious that we foiled her shitty efforts. Story 7. Someone made brownies with ground meat in them to a church potluck. My vegetarian friend discovered this when she bit into one. She was more confused and horrified about their existence than she was upset about eating meat. It was the concept of this abomination itself that was disturbing and baffling. I thought she had to be wrong. You haven't had ground beef in years. You don't know what it tastes like anymore. It's probably something else. I tried them. It was beef. I was disgusted and really confused. Years later, I found out that apparently this was a thing. Someone came up with this, putting beef in brownies, as a substitute for walnuts for people with nut allergies. While this explains it a little, in theory, I'm still confused about why someone would assume that people who can't eat walnuts would prefer to eat ground beef brownies over just regular, nut-free brownies. Story 8. Had a friend show up with his wife's specialty. It was deviled ham and cheese whiz scooped onto a Ritz. They were also made some time ahead because the crackers were no longer crisp. To make it worse, he walked around with them and his wife telling everyone to try them. That was the night I learned that it will be okay to strategically lie about having food allergies. Story 9. My husband and I went to a potluck at a park shelter one time. Someone had brought vegetables and dip. I was reaching for some when my husband nudged me and told me to look closely. There were bugs all in the vegetables. I don't think they were from being outside because none of the other food had bugs. I think whoever brought the platter either didn't notice the vegetables were full of bugs or didn't care. Story 10. An apple pie, but they didn't have apple pie spices like clove, cinnamon, or nutmeg, and said they used taco seasoning by accident and expected people to eat it. I, a dumb bitch who likes to torture themselves, tried it and promptly tossed it into the trash when they looked away. Story 11. A Korean-American coworker brought homemade kimchi, but she admittedly didn't know how to make it and just winged it. It was fermented wrong and was covered in mold, which she didn't seem to understand was bad. The vegetables were basically half liquefied, and it smelled like dumpster juice. The thing is, half of the chefs at work had learned to make kimchi correctly and safely since various different kimchis used to be on the menu before she was hired. So we all instantly knew it was wrong and unsafe, but no one wanted to tell her. Story 12. I love telling this story. I worked at a patient care clinic with mostly nurses. One nurse brings mashed potatoes inside of a Walmart bag. Not inside of a bowl, inside of a Walmart bag. Mashed potatoes, loose. Inside of a Walmart bag. that could have previously held raw chicken or some other gross thing? A nurse. I ended up posting about it on Facebook later, after having forgot we were FB friends. Oops. Story 13. I still feel bad for one of the office ladies who once brought ice-cold green bean casserole, not knowing her crock pot was never turned on. After this, she literally brought 2 cans of green beans, a bowl, and a can opener. Of course, no one ever ate the canned green beans after she stood at the microwave warming them up for 8 minutes or however long. At a later several-year reunion, she was still working there and had gray hair. And it occurred to me in that moment that she never had much in life. Life isn't lucky or full of joy for everyone. Story 14. Grandma brought the 1-year-old fruitcake she kept in a glass bowl covered in foil out from under her bed to the family potluck. When the foil came off, everyone gagged as it smelt like booze and death, and then she lit it on fire and poured cream on it and insisted everyone try it. It was simultaneously super dry and sopping wet, tasted like hand sanitizer, and had the texture of cat litter. Story 15. This one requires some setup because the dish is actually very popular at family gatherings. My dad was well known for his cakes, small variety of different ones. Nothing fancy, just good cake. He made one and iced it to serve later that day at a family potluck. The dog comes along and can barely get his tongue over the edge of the pan and gets about 1/3 of the icing off the top. Dad had leftover icing. So the moral of the story, eat from the same side of the dish that my dad serves himself from. Story 16. When I was in high school, we had an Around the World Day, and we were tasked to get in a group and make a dish from a chosen country. My group cooked at one girl's house. The condensed milk seemed a little weird, but we used it anyways. As we were cleaning up, we saw the can was 5 years expired, but it was too late. My group was afraid to taste test it. Almost every kid had explosive diarrhea, within a few mins of Around the World Day ending. Some were crying. Nobody knew who poisoned the school, but I'm suspicious it was us. Story 17. My grandmother-in-law. Everything she brings. The first time was stale cake in a bowl of syrup. It was both cake and soup, while also being neither. She has meat in her deep freezer, older than some of her grandchildren. She's a Depression-era cook, so expiration dates don't apply to medicine, cupboards, or freezers. Once she tried to give my daughter, 2 at the time, cough medicine that expired 9 years before she was even born. Story 18. A girl in our group is great at cooking. Then we noticed she changes the diaper of her 1 kid and doesn't wash hands later. Never. COVID and TV tutorials on how to wash hands were her last socially acceptable opportunity to learn this ancestral trick. But after she had a kid, her habits never improved. Story 19. Not really a potluck, but a person I used to work with would bring baked goods to quarterly meetings she conducted. Sometimes we'd go in as a team, and sometimes we'd go one. Everyone would rave about her baked goods, but all I could taste was mothballs. She lived in an old house. I think she had mothballs in her cupboards to keep mice away. It happened the first time. I thought I was imagining it. The second time I tasted it again. Mothballs are poisonous, so I had to discreetly spit it out. In later years, I had to politely decline her baked goods.